everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have read a book, which is a remarkable achievement. I have not read a book since May 2020, which is like a million years ago, or not, because lockdown time, pandemic time just exists in a completely different universe. I was doing really well with my reading. I was reading like 30 to 40 books a year for the past few years, and then 2020 was just such a weird year, obviously, for everybody, with lockdown, with working from home, I was pregnant. I felt really tired during the first trimester, so I just couldn't be bothered, just didn't have the energy to do anything. I did a lot of my reading, most of my reading on my way to work, on the commute. And then working from home, I didn't have a commute anymore, and even though I got all that time back, I just didn't pick up a book. I just lost my motivation. So it's been a really long time since I've read a book, but I have read, you may have heard of it, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Don't know if anyone's heard of that. Yes, that is the book that I have read. So proud of myself for it being something fancy and literary. I've even made some notes, which I'm going to be referring to because I can't remember anything since having a baby. So I decided to go for Austen and Pride and Prejudice. I've been thinking for a while I want to get back into reading, and I decided to go for this because I have been watching loads of YouTube videos, especially working from home. I like to have something on the background, but I stumbled across this woman's video, woman's channel that I'll link in the thingamajig below. She's called Dr. Octavia Cox, and she is a professor at Oxford University, and she has been doing all these like literature analysis, close readings is what she calls it, of Austen and Bronte's, and there's some Shakespeare, there's like some poetry, kind of Keats and Pope and stuff, and I just found it really interesting and engaging, and the Austen stuff piqued my interest more than the others because I'm familiar with the works because of seeing TV programs and film adaptations, but not actually having read the books. So watching these YouTube videos, I think what was great about them is just how engaging she was, and how interesting I found, like, kind of the topics that she was covering really made me want to actually read the book, not just watch the film or the TV program again. So that's why I went for Pride and Prejudice, and actually I did Google it to see how long it was, and was pleasantly surprised that it's not actually as long as I thought it would be. I don't know why in my head I imagined it to be really long. Maybe because I remember looking at the video box set of the BBC TV adaptation with Colin Firth in it, and because they're videos, it's like a pretty chunky box, and I was just thinking that would be how big the book is. It's not how books work. Anyway, this version is 325-ish pages, so I read this pretty quickly over the course of a few days, a week, which I'm so proud of myself. So Pride and Prejudice is about the Bennet family as the main characters. They are reasonably wealthy family of mother, father and 5 daughters, and Mrs. Bennet's chief ambition, aim now, is to get those daughters married off, and hopefully married well to someone of a certain amount of money, means, that kind of thing. So Austen's characters tend to be fairly well off. She doesn't really write about really poor people. So the Bennet family are actually quite well off, but the position of the daughters is quite precarious because they are daughters and not sons. They will not actually inherit their father's estate when he dies. That will be entailed to his next closest male relative. So for the daughters, there is this real motivation to get married, so that they will not be kind of homeless and wholly reliant on the kindness of their relatives once their father dies. So Austen's books are always really about class and about money and social commentary. And she's not really writing about poor people, but she is highlighting in particular, I think, the position of women in society in the early 19th century. I think this book was written in 1813. I'm not sure. That's what I think anyway. So yeah, it's usually considered to be like a romance between Lizzie Bennet, our feisty, intelligent, independent heroine, and Mr. Darcy, the proud, aloof, very, very, very rich gentleman that she meets and is thrown together with at various points throughout the book. But these books aren't so much about romance. Oh, they are about romance, but they're about class and they're about money, and that kind of stuff is more interesting to me, I think, than the romance side of things. There's a couple of proposals in the book where Lizzie gets proposed to, and the first one, there's an assumption on both of the men's parts that she will say yes. And the first proposal, he basically says, you should accept me because you're really poor and you may not get a better offer. On the second proposal, he proposes but says he's doing it against his better judgment and the wishes of his family. But they still both kind of expect a yes. This is kind of burst the bubble of the romance kind of side of things, and really highlights that marriage was not at this time necessarily about romance and affection, but more about finances and that kind of transactional element. So watching the YouTube videos that I mentioned before has really helped, I think, with understanding some of that. So like what an entail is, when the estate is being left to the next male relative. Also understanding more about the class structure of the time, so understanding how the various characters related to each other in terms of class, because that is really, really important to the characters and would have also been really important to the audience reading it at the time. But every character in the books knows where they relate to the person that they're talking to in terms of their class, in terms of their income, in terms of their ranking, their gender, all of these different factors. And it's a really important part of the books that I think you lose some of in translation to like contemporary times. So those YouTube videos I have found quite helpful and quite interesting in the way she sort of highlighted certain things like the class of various characters and kind of understanding what that means. And she refers to the text when she is talking about these things. So again, that's what made me enthusiastic about actually reading the book and not just watching the TV programme again, although I do now want to watch that again as well. So I was reading the book and I was enjoying it, and I was finding it really accessible. I actually found it a lot easier to understand than I thought it would. I think because as my favourite person, as Octavia Cox says, there's a lot of dialogue in the book, and I think that is easier to understand than perhaps long passages of just prose, those sentences that just seem to go on forever and ever and ever as people wrote back then. But no, I was pleasantly surprised by how short the book was, how accessible the book was, and that I did enjoy it. But I did wonder at times whether I would have enjoyed it as much if I wasn't as familiar with the story, with the general plot, and if I hadn't have already enjoyed some of the adaptations that I've seen elsewhere. I do think I would have done. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. So I'm wondering now whether I should try other Austen books or whether I should go for something similar genre but that I haven't already seen an adaptation of, just to kind of test the theory, I suppose. But I did enjoy reading it, and I have kind of got the reading bug, and I'm hoping that I can maintain this motivation and enthusiasm for reading. It's just finding the time and finding the energy is the problems, I suppose. But yeah, Pride and Prejudice, I enjoyed, would recommend. Also, I love this cover with the bonnet on the front. If you've read Pride and Prejudice or any of the other Austens, let me know what you think in the comments. If you like the video, please give me a like, and for more, please subscribe.